So far, we saw 28 verses, the second and third section of the chapter, where Aśvatthāmā had killed these 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi. And Arjuna had actually vowed, whoever has done this, I will bring their head to you, he was saying to Draupadi. And after that, he, with the help of Krishna, sets out to find the offender and realizes it is Aśvatthāmā. And here, he's also experiencing that Aśvatthāmā has released a Brahma, but it is not very evident to Arjuna what's happening. So he's offering prayers to Krishna, and we saw that prayers. And then Krishna is explaining to Arjuna what is the actual situation and what he should do to counteract the Brahmastra. And that's what we will see from verses 29 onwards. What did Arjuna do? Did he actually release the Brahmastra? Did he actually fulfill his promise to Draupadi? How did he fulfill his promise to Draupadi? That's what we will see from verses 29 to 58 onwards today. So Krishna explained to that Aśvatthāmā has launched Brahmastra and only Arjuna can actually stop it. So he is asking basically Arjuna to counteract. Again, if you remember, in Bhagavad Gita also, Arjuna very enthusiastically and positively stepped into the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And when it was time, he was overwhelmed emotionally and he refused to fight. And here on his own, he took a vow. He's all he's all ready. He's impassioned. Can you imagine? Like, it is not just any war, it is his sons who were killed. So you can imagine the feelings of a father. It's not just a rage of a warrior. It's not just he has some problem in the kingdom and he's waging a war. It is his own sleeping sons were killed, beheaded. So one of the most gruesome ways to kill. And they are his own sons. So you can imagine the amount of anger and the passion to revenge with which he would have set out. And he's completely determined and ready to act. And that's why he's pursuing Aśvatthāmā with a clear idea what he needs to do. And so the tone of guidance also, we saw that Krishna takes the initiative to instruct Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita also after he surrenders. And here Arjuna has already heard the Bhagavad Gita just a few days back, 18 days back. And Krishna has clearly explained to him and everything is clear to Arjuna. That's what he said. And that's how he acted on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And here, let us see, it's a very similar situation. And Krishna is still the chariot driver for Arjuna. And Arjuna is the passionate Kshatriya who is ready to actually avenge. Let's see what he does and how does he obey the orders of the Supreme Lord Krishna in this particular situation. Verse 29, Sutta Goswami says that, hearing this from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that Aśvatthāmā has released a Brahmastra and only Arjuna's weapon can counteract the power of Aśvatthāma's Brahmastra. So hearing this from the Supreme Lord, Arjuna immediately touched water for purification, because these are weapons released with mantras. So one needs to actually purify himself. So recently we had this initiation ceremony where Nand Maharaj was saying that the particular verse, Om Apavachi, he was saying that this particular verse is the process, purpose, and spirit of initiation. Or he said, in general, spiritual life or goal of human life itself, that whatever situation we are, either in good situation, bad situation, happy situation, unhappy situation, a situation in which we are honored, in a situation in which we are dishonored or missed to be honored, still in all those situations, focus of life is purification. How can I react in ways that I can actually purify my life? And also the best way to react is also to sometimes, or always, according to the verse, it's my lack of faith, I'm saying sometimes. It is important. It is that by remembering Krishna in all situations will be purified, whatever the external situation may be. And Maharaj said this is the purpose, process, and the spirit of not just initiation, the life itself. And here we'll see how Arjuna exhibits that mood, that he touches water for purification, he circumambulates the Supreme Lord, and then he casts his Brahmastra weapon to counteract the Brahmastra off. And in verse 30, we see that how the rays of the two Brahmastras actually combine. They are like two weapons. We have seen in very primitive graphics in olden Indian movies that two arrows would come and they would just meet and they would just become like, they will burst. So a great circle of fire, like this disk of the sun, it covered all the outer space. And it, like we can see these days sometimes when wars are going on, like we can see some kind of a situation like this. And it is said, Prabhupada says in the purport, that the heat created by the flash of a Brahmastra was like the fire exhibited by the sun globe at the time of cosmic annihilation. So this is, Prabhupada says, the radiation of atomic energy is very insignificant in comparison to the heat produced by a Brahmastra. We know the atom bomb is really very powerful. And he says the atomic bomb explosion can at most blow up one globe, but the heat produced by the Brahmastra can destroy the whole cosmic situation. So the comparison is therefore made to the heat at the time of annihilation. So then Prabhupada continues, and all the populations of the three worlds was like, everyone could feel the heat of the weapons. everybody was reminded by the Samvartaka fire, which takes place at the time of annihilation. And seeing the disturbance of the general populace and the imminent destruction of the planets, Arjuna at once retracted both the Brahmastra weapons. He actually counteracted and also retracted both, because the problem with Aśvatthāmā was he was only taught how to release Brahmastra and he did not have the mantras to retract Brahmastra. However, Arjuna was a superior warrior. By his own father, Aśvatthāma's father, Arjuna was taught how to not just release but also to retract. So he used his weapon to counteract and retract both together, because if he did not retract, then it can lead to widespread destruction. So after this was done, you can imagine here in this verse 33, Arjuna is being described. He says his eyes were blazing in anger like two red balls of copper. The amount of anger he has because his sons were killed by son of Dronacharya. So immediately he arrested after detracting that weapon. And now Aśvatthāmā has no defense. So he was immediately arrested by Arjuna. And not just arrested, he was bound with ropes like an animal. And in the Purport, Prabhupada says how Sridhar Swami also writes, because though he was born, Aśvatthāmā was born of Bhagavatam and Dronacharya, a bona fide son of great personalities. However, he had degraded himself to a lower status of life. That is why it was proper to treat him like an animal, not as a Brahmana. So we see Aśvatthāmā had great connections. However, his personal behavior was of a very lower nature. So then he is held responsible for that. And after binding Aśvatthāmā, Arjuna, he really wanted to take him to the military camp because there all the rest of the family is there. And however, Krishna was looking on his, like here in this verse, the previous verse, Arjuna was addressed as someone with copper eyes, like red, hot, angry eyes. And here Krishna is being described as Ambujekshana. He's looking on with lotus eyes. Krishna is cool. Krishna's eyes are here also now also called as lotus. Has two qualities. One is also it's beautiful. His eyes are like the lotus petals, but lotus is also very cool. And so he spoke to Arjuna, who was in an angry mood. And here it is said, Krishna also spoke to Arjuna in an angry mood, but his eyes are described as Ambujekshana. And Arjuna is also in angry mood, but his eyes are called as like copper balls, red hot copper balls. And Prabhupada also brings out that particular comparison here. He says both Arjuna and Lord Krishna are described here in an angry mood, but Arjuna's eyes are like balls of red copper, whereas the eyes of the Lord were like lotuses. This means that the angry mood of Arjuna and that of the Lord are not on the same level. Recently also I was speaking to an Indian, how in general, a lot of Indians can confuse, oh, why did Krishna get married to so many people? Why did he do this? Here we will see in a couple of verses later how Krishna very much contradicts his behavior and what he says and what he does. And unless people understand the transcendental position of Krishna, it is quite bewildering. It is just not possible to wrap our head around Krishna's actions. So the Lord is, the Lord is transcendence and he is absolute in any stage. His anger is not like the anger of a conditioned living being within the modes of qualitative material nature, because he is absolute. Both his anger and pleasure are the same. So his anger is not exhibited in the three modes of material nature. It's only a sign of his bent of mind towards the cause of his devotee, because that is his transcendental nature. Therefore, even if he is angry, the object of anger is blessed. He is unchanged in all circumstances. This whole passage of Prabhupada, but I think we'll go with the flow of the chapter. Lord Shri Krishna said, "O Arjuna, you should not show mercy by releasing this relative of a Brahmana, Brahmabandhu, for he has killed innocent boys in their sleep." Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Sorry to interrupt, but I was just wondering then, if Krishna's anger and happiness are the same, then how can we say that he was angry then? How can we distinguish? How would we even know that he was angry when the signs that he shows from his face or from his body language don't say that he was angry?
If you read the translation of the verse 34, it is very clearly said, so he was in an angry mood. It does not mean he did not show anger. It was not like, it is not that it was not evident in his face, but the quality of that anger, that's why the eyes are compared to lotus, and the Lord is being explained as transcendental, because even though he is angry, even if it is an external anger, still the object of anger is blessed. It's not that Krishna is stoic, like you cannot figure out whether he is happy or whether he is angry. He has the same expression. Some people have these confusing expressions where you cannot say whether they are excited or not. It's not like Krishna is not like that. Krishna is showing his emotions, but when we are saying that it was same, qualitatively it was same. He was not exhibiting anger under the influence of the mode of passion. He was still transcendental, and he is not under the influence of the modes. Because of that quality, that both his anger and his happiness or his being pleased, they are transcendental. On the level of quality, they are same. It's not that in terms of his expressions, he were same. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Yeah. You're not convinced, but we can take it later.
Yes, later. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And here we see that Krishna is giving him a clear instruction.
Just a quick comment. I think the difficulty when it comes to Krishna's anger or any other emotion is that we use the same word for Krishna's emotions as we do for our emotions. And that's why it seems like it's of the same quality or impelled by the same energy. But maybe if we had different vocabulary for Krishna's emotions and our emotions, it would be easier to understand. But because we use the word anger for Krishna's anger and for our anger, it makes it like bewildering or confusing. But so the point is that even though we use the same word for Krishna's emotions and our emotions, they're categorically different energies. So that's my comment.
Yeah, thank you. That's why again the commentaries keep clarifying, or don't get confused with the anger of a conditioned soul and Krishna, or the pastimes of Krishna with the lust of the conditioned soul. We again get this clarification because all emotions originally are exhibited by Krishna. What we are exhibiting in this world is contaminated by the three modes. That's why we say the material reality is a reflected reality. So it is there, but it is just perverted. Yeah, technically the vocabulary is same, but the quality, as you were saying, yeah, it is different. That's why there is a confusion for sure. So now that Krishna is informing Arjuna, literally instructing Arjuna, in text 35, it is very interesting from here, the conversation that, oh, Arjuna, you should not show mercy by releasing this relative of a Brahmana, for he has killed innocent boys in their sleep. Because Arjuna is just binding him, arresting him, and Arjuna is not punishing him. What he had promised to Draupadi was, I'll bring the head of the one who did this. And Krishna is telling him, hey, you were supposed to execute your vow. You have the person in your hand, so why would you just bind him? And we can see this is very similar to Bhagavad Gita, that he says something, but he did not do, and Krishna is telling him, no, you should fight. And here the same situation, he vowed to kill, but he's just arresting, and Krishna is saying, hey, why would you not kill? This person is a Brahma Bandhu. He did not act like a Brahmana. So moreover, Krishna gives this verse 36. A person who knows the principles of religion does not kill an enemy who is careless, matam, intoxicated, untam, who is sleeping, balam, usually children, and striyam, women, jadam, a foolish person. Jadam means, how you say, we so speak Jada Bharat as Jada, basically someone who is like kind of foolish, or somebody, prapannam, one who has surrendered. But there is also a very interesting word, virat, means one who's devoid of a chariot, bhitam, who's afraid. And Krishna, just before 2 or 3 days before saying this, he had encouraged Arjuna to kill Karna. Karna was also viratam. And just 3 days back, Krishna told, no, this is okay, you should go and kill. And today Krishna is telling Arjuna that, no, you should kill this person. And he quotes a scriptural verse to support his authority. Because this guy did Suptam and Balam, someone who's sleeping, and that someone who's sleeping were children. So he's double down reasons in this by this verse. But also Arjuna can be confused. Oh, before a few days they said Karna was devoid of a chariot, but we just killed him. It's just literally 3 days back or 2 days back. And here Krishna is telling, oh, what are the principles of religion? So it is not, sometimes we have very romantic idea of receiving instructions from the Supreme Lord or having association of great devotees. It comes with big, price, comes with not just everything is like crystal clear, because the problem is not the one who's giving instructions. The problem is also the one who's receiving instructions also needs to have a clear head. To the extent our consciousness is clouded, to that extent situations become more chaotic than what it is. So we see situations through our own consciousness also. I'm pretty sure somebody may say, I'm done. Krishna, I'm leaving Krishna consciousness. You give contradictory. We sometimes think devotees do contradictory behavior, and we think, oh no, bhakti is not for me. People are so hard. They say do something else, and then they say completely another thing at different times. And here Arjuna is having that direct experience. And then we think, me and my Lord and nothing and nobody else in between. He understands me, so I will just keep my bhakti and it'll be okay. But what if you directly interact with the Supreme Lord and you give, so you don't have anywhere to go to shelter, like they're straight. Krishna himself is constantly contradicting. So and Arjuna is again in the same situation, not budge. He's just, no, it's fine. Let's drive to the camp. And okay, before a few days, the same situation, you heard Bhagavad Gita and you surrendered. It happened like Arjuna himself said, whatever you say, I'm fully following you. That also Arjuna had declared. And here Krishna is saying, kill this person. And he says, no, I won't kill. Let's take him to the camp. And it's very, for us, it can just be one pastime. Okay, what's the big deal? He said, kill him, and he did not follow. But the weight of the situation is much different. It's not that easy. Krishna is telling you, personally, kill. And what kind of how easy it is to say, no, I don't agree with you. Thank you for the suggestion, but let's go back to the camp. And you drive. You are the one who has to drive to the camp. No, it's okay. Just drive to the camp. It's not very easy. And here we will see that's how it's unfolding. A cruel and a wretched person who maintains his existence at the cost of others lives deserves to be killed for his own well-being, otherwise he will go down his own actions. Krishna is doubling down with the reasoning for why Arjuna should instantly kill Aśvatthāmā. That's what is happening in verses 36, verses 37, and 38. 38, he gave two Shastric injunctions, and now he is saying, furthermore, I have personally heard you promise Draupadi that you would bring forth the head of the killer of her sons. Just before less than an hour, you just said you will bring the head of the killer of her sons to Draupadi. You promised. And why would you not do that? And he continues to explain, this man is an assassin and a murderer of your own family members. Not only that, but he has also dissatisfied his master. He is but the burnt remnants of his family. Kill him immediately. He is but the burnt remnants of his family. Such a strong word. He has such strong arguments he's putting forward, and also the inciting passion of a Kshatriya. Imagine, Krishna is completely inciting the passion of to kill, and still Arjuna does not. And he says, although Krishna, who was examining Arjuna in religion, encouraged Arjuna to kill the son of Dronacharya, Arjuna, a great soul, did not like the idea of killing him, although Aśvatthāmā was a heinous murderer of Arjuna's family members. So there are multiple strands of beautiful reasoning why Arjuna did not immediately kill. If you just compare in Bhagavad Gita, like in the Mahabharata war, whoever, after he surrendered, whoever Arjuna told, whatever Krishna told, whoever it was before him, Arjuna killed on the opposite army. It did not matter. They were family members, elders, whatever. He just went with whatever the war demanded. And here, Arjuna is not willing to do that. And why Krishna is testing him? You may say, Krishna, what's your problem? Why don't you just straightforward do things? Why don't you just say? So the reason, Prabhupada also explains in the purport, why would Krishna put his devotees in complicated, difficult situations? And Prabhupada also writes in one of the, and in this purport, verse 40, he says, Lord Krishna encouraged Arjuna outwardly just to test Arjuna's sense of duty. It's not that Arjuna was incomplete in the sense of his duty, nor was Lord Sri Krishna unaware of Arjuna's sense of duty. But Lord Krishna puts to the test many of his pure devotees just to magnify the sense of duty. The gopis were put to such tests as well. Prahlad Maharaj was also put to such a test. All pure devotees come out successful in the respective test by the Lord. So the whole situation, why Krishna is creating this confusion, is to show the greatness of Arjuna. Because Arjuna was not an angry Kshatriya, an average angry Kshatriya who just tit for tat or who would just apply justice drop of the hat. He has a lot more thought process going behind what he is doing. In the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he fought because it was for a cause beyond his immediate cause. It was not just his family problem. It was related to establishing dharma. It was related to the kingdom. It was related to the extended citizens and everything. There were more people involved than just his family and kingdom. It was not just his family alone. Here, it was just his family. So he is able to restrain himself and does not want to act in extreme ways because it is just his own family involved. So he wants to take decisions in a more poised way. Though he just promised to Draupadi, still when it comes to executing it, he is applying restraint. He is not just, okay, here I have him, let us just kill. He's not going like that. So here also he's showing that how for one's own personal reasons, a devotee is willing to actually tolerate extreme situations also. And I'm not saying that this is the right way to do in such a drastic situation as losing someone's son. However, for one's own in personal life, a devotee is willing to actually tolerate and be forgiving. It can be differing from situation to situation, but here Arjuna is showing that even in such an extreme situation, as a Vaishnava, when it comes to his personal things, he acts as a Vaishnava, not just as a Kshatriya, but more of a Vaishnava. And he's willing to hold on. He's willing to restrain and act in ways which would be better. And he doesn't want to act out of passion. After reaching his own camp, so he did not listen to Krishna's suggestions. Imagine what he would have told Krishna to turn the chariot and go back to the battlefield, to the camp. No, Krishna, I don't agree with you. Let's resolve this in the camp. So Krishna was, okay, means you're not willing to listen to the Supreme Lord. That's fine. It's okay. So the weight of the situation is very high to say no. Imagine your spiritual master comes and tells you, do it like that. And we all disobey. It's not that we don't disobey, but not at the right at the phase, immediately. At least we will say yes and we will do something else later. But here he has to immediately, right on before the eyes of Krishna, he has to tell him, no, just turn the chariot. We are going back to the camp. So after reaching his own camp, Arjuna, along with his dear friend and charioteer, entrusted the murderer unto his dear wife who was lamenting for her murdered sons. So he just gave to Draupadi. Okay, here, Draupadi, you can decide. And Sutta Goswami says in the verse 42, I'm supposed to move the slides, that he brings her to Draupadi And Suta Goswami is saying that how Draupadi then saw Aśvatthāmā, who was bound with ropes like an animal and silent for having enacted the most inglorious murder. You can only imagine someone like Aśvatthāmā. Like doing a mistake is one thing in the heat of the moment, and then being caught, that's the moment of truth. Everything sinks in. And if you have ever, probably no, you have never needed to, but if you have ever watched any, what do you call a criminal being brought to the court, and on the day of judgment, when the whole trial is over, on the day of judgment, actually the seriousness of what they did sinks in. A lot of people commit murder, a lot of people commit, especially murder, because of completely being covered by the modes of ignorance and passion. Out of anger, they're completely covered by the modes. Sometimes it is anger, sometimes it is vengeance, and all kinds of emotions. Basically, intense modes of passion and a strong dose of ignorance. It completely covers the intelligence of an individual, and they act in ways which they are not able to actually understand. Like, why did I do that? How did I do that? Even serial killers, abusers, and all these kind of people also, on the day of judgment, there is a moment of truth. Things actually get real, and then it's very difficult to stand. The most difficult situation is to actually get exposed to ourselves. We can lie, we can actually do some politics, we can act in duplicitous ways, we can create some trouble, we can sometimes do those things. But the moment of truth, to stand up and realize, oh, what did I do? That's a very intense moment. So it needs a spiritual integrity to actually not immediately just punish oneself, but to turn to Krishna and to really reform and really seek forgiveness, and internally and externally, and also to reform oneself. It takes a lot of spiritual strength. And here Aśvatthāmā for sure is not in that kind of a consciousness, really. So we can only imagine the turmoil of the consciousness of such a person. And here Aśvatthāmā is in one such situation. And it is said, due to her gentle female nature, Draupadi, due to her being naturally good and well-behaved, he showed him due respects as a Brahmana. Again, it's heart-wrenching. If there is a lesson for etiquette, there is no better person more qualified than Draupadi to speak on etiquette. This is just a social etiquette. We're not even speaking about Vaishnava etiquette. Someone has killed her sons, and she is practicing etiquette. And we are sometimes in the society of devotees, we are speaking about Vaishnava etiquette. And it's very hard, even when we have difference of opinions, to actually respect someone. Someone walks into the room with whom we have a difference of opinion. We cannot even be happy. We cannot go embrace. We cannot offer obeisances. We just don't want to. Means sometimes I feel like, no, I don't want to acknowledge my presence or their presence. Just move to another corner of the room or something. It's very showing of one's own consciousness, because here we can see Draupadi. It's not even that Aśvatthāmā is like a Vaishnava or something. In his own way, he's a great personality. He's a Chiranjiva. But however, here in the social custom, she's willing to practice in that extreme situation. Hardly what people would have done to me. They might not have agreed to the opinion I gave them, or we would have probably disagreed. Probably I feel like I did not receive any recognition, appreciation, or acknowledgement, and nothing much happens in most of the times. Where rarely there is like an abusive situation or something. But even for smaller things, when there is a difference of opinion, it's very hard to practice etiquette. And that's why one of the Vaishnava aparadha is also to see a Vaishnava and not be happy. It's such a hard thing, because if there is something in the heart, then it's very hard actually to receive people happily and to interact with people as if with proper etiquettes. It's extremely hard. And here Draupadi is setting such a high example that she could not tolerate Aśvatthāmā being bound by ropes, and being a devoted lady, she said, release him, for he is a Brahmana, our spiritual master. And she was so soft-hearted, she could not just see he being inconvenienced and treated in a disrespectful way. Her heart just cannot see someone being disrespected. And just before 2 days back, when I was speaking to someone, they said, oh, why Krishna would marry 16,000 queens, and Draupadi, lady, she married 5 men. And today the standard is monogamy, like you have to be with one partner and otherwise you are not chaste. Of course, that's a completely different discussion. We had a different discussion. It's just, and I was thinking, do you even know who Draupadi is? Like, your only idea of judgment of Draupadi is she married 5 men. And so it should be okay for anyone to marry any number of people, either gender. So not knowing the great situation of Draupadi, so they were just considering her as a normal person. Here we can see the greatness of Draupadi. This whole chapter is showing, before the Bhagavatam begins, what it takes to be a Vaishnava. This whole chapter is also to show that what happens in a Vaishnava community, even when there is difference of opinions, even when there is extreme situations like someone's sons being killed when they are sleeping, like literally beheaded. And here, this is the whole outset in which a great Vaishnava is born also. So what it takes to actually give birth to Bhagavatam, give birth to someone who would receive Bhagavatam. So what it takes to be great, what is the price of greatness? So that's what this whole chapter speaks about. That here, Draupadi, Arjuna, every single one shows a different mood. And also someone great like Bhima, jumps in and shows a contrary mood to show that what happens when there are difference of opinions. Because if everybody was such a Vaishnava and there is no difference of opinion, then we would not have a lesson to learn from here. And Bhima also is doing a service by coming and showing, no, this is not how it is done. So there is a drama created, but that drama actually brings out what happens when there is difference of opinions among great personalities. How do they deal with that? And what to speak of among them who are all great? They're even willing to act in very respectable ways or very gentle Vaishnava ways with someone who they cannot agree with what they did. There is absolutely no, it's not that Draupadi is saying, it's okay, my sons are killed. It's okay what he did. No, just by forgiving, it does not mean Draupadi is saying all that he did is okay. And at the same time, it's not that they're not punishing him. Proper punishment is meted out. It's not that the Aśvatthāmā is not punished, but there is a way that it was executed in a Vaishnava community. So it was Dronacharya's mercy that you learned the military art of throwing arrows and the confidential art of controlling weapons. Because there are extremes. Sometimes we think because they are all Vaishnavas, there should be no repercussion. People can do anything they want and they can get away with it. That's neither right either. Because as authority, especially if somebody is in an authority position, so then it is also a responsibility that people don't get away with any bad behavior. At the same time, how it is done is also is very nuanced. So it's a lot of responsibility to be a Vaishnava and to be a leader in a Vaishnava community. It's crazy. You will lose all your hair like that. It's just out of anxiety. You just have to pull your hair out. If you're not on that level of consciousness, it's very hard to deal with in a Vaishnava community. It is not that we are complicated people. It's just that a refined consciousness is hard to grapple for a conditioned soul. That's all. Refined consciousness is an enigma when we are not on that level. So it takes one to actually understand one, they say. So sometimes we receive instructions from great personalities. Unless we have some glimpse of that consciousness, it's very difficult. Why would they behave in ways they behave? And I'm not speaking about any externally immoral behavior. I'm speaking about sometimes we receive instructions. Oh, okay, that person did something, but okay, just punish them or forgive them. So I'm speaking about such situations. So it was by Dronacharya's mercy that you learned the military art of throwing arrows and the confidential art of controlling weapons. Why the weapon you released in order to arrest this person, even that weapon was taught by this guy's father. So just be grateful. And recently I attended 2 talks of Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and there were something very, the same literal same sentence I heard in those 2 talks in completely different contexts. But I could just see that this principle is by which he is living. So he is able to distill that. He was speaking to a group of new people and he said, I was just coming to this program and the traffic jam was so bad. That is the longest sleep I got in the recent times. That's the longest time I got a nap during the day in the recent times. And he also said that he was speaking about Kumbh Mela and he said there were like millions of people. And he said it took so long to actually get to that place to actually bathe. He said unimaginable number of people and the amount of time it took to actually go from someone's camp to the place to take bath and come back. It's just 3 dips. The amount of talk was even more than the traffic jam. But he said, because people were grateful to be in that situation, that they were actually eager to go and take a dip and they were grateful, it did not matter. They were willing to actually tolerate the situation and be peaceful. And here he said in this traffic jam, everybody was frustrated because nobody was grateful to be in that traffic jam. So there was absolutely irritation, frustration, and like basically irritation and frustration because there was no gratitude, there was no peace. And he used the same principle he was explaining through another situation in another talk, that how only when somebody is grateful, they can be actually peaceful in any situation. If there is no gratitude, there is no peace. So here, immediately Draupadi is showing that, oh, just be grateful. How can I forgive this person? Be grateful. Think of what they have done. Dronacharya is certainly still existing, being represented by his son. His wife Kripi did not undergo a sati with him because she had a son. So she's not just thinking of Dronacharya, she's also thinking of Kripi Vatra. So the verse, Bhagavad Gita verse in chapter 6, there's a verse, I think 34, some 30 series, 32, maybe, I'm not sure. In a Sarvatra, greatest yogi is one who actually understands others' pain in comparison to his own pain. So Draupadi, she understands the pain of losing 5 sons and she still has some sons. And she's thinking, Kripi had only 1 son and she's just lost her husband. At least I have my husbands. I have 5 husbands. And I've lost my sons. There is no doubt about it. But for Kripi, she has just lost her husband. Her only support in her life is her son. And he is her only son. So taking him away would be unbearable for Kripi. So I'm just going through this. I know how painful it is. I don't want Kripi to go through the same thing. So Vaishnava is someone who understands how painful it is to actually to go through life and difficult circumstances. And they don't want to put others through that for one's own personal reasons. They don't want to put others into trouble because they understand how troublesome it is. So that is the sign of a greatest yogi. In the Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter, it was mentioned that, oh, most fortunate, she is saying to Arjuna, that one who knows the principles of religion, it's not good for you to cause grief to glorious family members who are always respectable and worshipable. My lord, do not make the wife of Dronacharya cry like me. I am aggrieved for death of my sons. She need not cry constantly like me. If the kingly administrative order, being unrestricted in sense control, offends the Brahmana order and enrages them, then the fire of that rage burns up the whole body of the royal family and brings grief upon them all. So she's giving all kinds of, she spoke more like highly elevated arguments before, the reasons of what do you call he being a Brahmana, or he being grateful for what we received from them, and then understanding or sympathizing with Kripi. And now she's speaking more administrative codes, more Kshatriya codes, that please do not. If you act out of control, if you act without sense control, without restraint, then it will cause trouble. So now Sutta Goswami is saying, what is happening there? So, O Brahmanas, like he's speaking to the sages, he's saying King Yudhishthira fully supported the statements of the queen. He's not speaking what Yudhishthira said. Goswami is stepping in so that the conversation could be briefly put out to us. The situation could be explained better. He's stepping in and saying, yes, King Yudhishthira also fully supported the statements of Queen. He's naturally like that, and which were in accordance with the principles of religion and were justified, glorious, full of mercy and equity, and without duplicity. There is no question that they are not trying to impress anyone. They're not trying to be known as great personalities. Nothing. There is no question of duplicity. It is who they are at heart. They say, right, when you squeeze orange, what comes is orange juice. When you squeeze, what do you call some other fruit like a mango, what comes is mango juice. When life squeezes us, difficult situations, what comes out is the juice of our character. So here they are being completely squeezed, and what comes out is their real character. They are Vaishnavas. So when life squeezes us, we also have to look at our own juice and understand what is inside. So here we see there is no duplicity, Draupadi. They're all behaving in such Vaishnava ways. Nakula and Sahadev, and also Satyaki, Arjuna, the personality of Lord Krishna, the son of Devaki, and the ladies and others all unanimously agreed with the king. Everybody agreed. So now, literally everybody has agreed. Now somebody has to play the role of a party pooper, like someone who has to spoil the party. Like, otherwise there is no drama. Krishna has to bring in drama. Otherwise Arjuna's greatness will not be brought, and the qualities of all these devotees would not come out for the world to see what it takes to be a Vaishnava. And Bhima, now just the situation is Yudhishthira accepting what Draupadi said, and everybody is accepting what Yudhishthira is saying. However, Bhima, in text 51, he steps in and says, he angrily disagreed with them and recommended killing this culprit who had murdered sleeping children for no purpose and for neither his nor his master's interest. So he's saying, no, this cannot be, we cannot let this slide. We need to address this. And it is said, verse 52, Krishna is called with the name of Chaturbhuja. In the purport, it is said that why he is called as Chaturbhuja, that all these devotees were disagreeing so passionately that Krishna had to manifest the extra hands to hold Bhima on a separate side, on the others on the separate side. So Krishna had to come and had to manifest the extra hands. That he is called as Chaturbhuja suddenly. So Draupadi, the four-armed one, the personality of Godhead, after hearing the words of Bhima, Draupadi, and others, saw the face of his dear friend Arjuna, and he began to speak as if smiling. So purport also speaks about that how Lord Krishna had two arms. Why he is designated as four-armed is explained by Sridhar Swami. Both Bhima and Draupadi held opposing views about killing Aśvatthāmā. So Bhima wanted him to be immediately killed, whereas Draupadi wanted to save him. So we can imagine Bhima ready to kill while Draupadi is obstructing him. And in order to prevent both of them, the Lord discovered another two arms. The Lord discovered. Such an interesting terminology, Prabhupada. Like usually we would say the Lord manifests another two arms, but Prabhupada is writing, discovered another two arms. Originally, the primeval Lord displays only two arms, but in his Narayan feature, he exhibits four. So, yeah. So therefore, if Sri Krishna is called Chaturbhuja, there is no contradiction because he can do anything he wants. If need, he can display hundreds of arms. What to speak of two? And he says in Vishwarupa, he had shown much more arms. So therefore, one who can display hundreds and thousands of arms can also manifest four whenever needed. And then like Krishna is now stepping in. He's not just stopping them, but he's also speaking. So he's saying, oh, a friend of a Brahmana is not to be killed. But if he is an aggressor, he must be killed. All these rulings are in the scriptures and you should act accordingly. You have to fulfill your promise to your wife, and you must also act according to the satisfaction of Bhimasena and me, and also Yudhishthira Maharaj, of course. So he's just putting Arjuna on the spot. He's not making it easy. So usually we'll be angry at anyone who does anything like this to us, that they don't make the situation easy, rather they just make it even more difficult. So here Arjuna is being put on a spot by Krishna, and he's saying, no, satisfy all of us. Sometimes it's very hard. We all know it's very hard in this world to satisfy everybody. It's almost impossible. And that's what Krishna is asking Arjuna to achieve. So just then Arjuna could understand the motive of the Lord by his equivocal orders, and thus with his sword he severed both hair and jewel from the head of Aśvatthāmā. So when difficult situation comes, when we see that, oh, I'm not able to understand what I should do, and we pray to Krishna. Here Arjuna is being confused by Krishna himself. When we are in confusion, we pray to Krishna. And Krishna is the one who here putting Arjuna into confusion. And Arjuna is not getting irritated at all. That's why this verse is very clearly saying that he could understand the motive of the Lord. So what it means to be a devotee is to understand the motive of the Supreme Lord. What it means to be a disciple is to understand the heart of a spiritual master or an authority. So following or being a follower is not just a matter of external rituals alone. So it also needs to understand the heart of the one whom we are following. So here Arjuna could immediately understand the motive of the Lord. Because he understood the motive of Krishna, heart of Krishna, he was not irritated by the equivocal orders. If someone says, you can do, but you should also not do, but I think you should do it, but I think it's also better if you don't do it, you just decide. You're like, I asked you for clarity, you made me more confused. So here Krishna has done that. Arjuna is not disturbed because he understands the heart of the Lord. He is realizing that Krishna wants me to show how to act best in these situations. He is using me as an instrument to show to the world how to actually act according to Dharma without being confused, without being frustrated, without being exasperated in such complicated situations. So he understood the heart of the Lord. So he was not disturbed. He was not angry at Krishna. He is not, forget all this. You guys are so complicated. I'm giving up the situation. I go out. I quit. No. So then he can actually, when he is peaceful, when he is taking shelter of Krishna, the intelligence can come. So if we are too frustrated, then we don't want to even deal with the situation. But what Arjuna is showing is, if we are peaceful, we can actually turn to the right sources of help. We can take help. We can ask for guidance, and then we will be able to act in proper ways. But however, if we get exasperated, then it is very hard to have that mood, the ability to go and take suggestions or guidance or anything. So here, because Arjuna was having that more, he could understand the motive of Krishna, that he immediately turned to Krishna internally, and he could receive the intelligence how to act in ways which will satisfy all of them, all the Vaishnavas present. So he had already lost his bodily luster due to infanticide, and now moreover having lost the jewel from his head. Now that he was punished, Aśvatthāmā is already punished, that his hair was cut off and the jewel he was having, that was also cut off. And now he has lost even more strength. So he's like basically living dead. So thus he was unbound and driven out of the camp. So it is said for a Brahmana, humiliation is like as good as being killed. So that's why Brahmana usually, just even words are enough to kill a Brahmana. Just a look, just a few words of disrespect will be more than enough to actually for this person. So that is why here he was just disrespected, and so simultaneously he was killed and not killed by the intelligence of the Lord and Krishna. So cutting the hair from his head, depriving him of his wealth, and driving him from his residence are the prescribed punishments for the relative of a Brahmana. There is no injunction for killing the body. Thereafter, the sons of Pandu and Draupadi, overwhelmed with grief, performed the proper rituals for the dead bodies of their relatives. So thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the first canto, chapter 7 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Son of Drona Punished. And I will just say in a minute, and then we will open up for questions or comments and reflections, that here we can see the relationship dynamic of Krishna and Arjuna. So clarity of instruction was there, even if sometimes the instruction was indirect or paradoxical. It was meant to draw Arjuna's inner realization. So difficulties in life, confusing situations, complicated situations are in one way to actually elevate us in spiritual maturity. The clarity of instruction, the lack of it, was to actually increase in Arjuna's inner realization. And though he was externally confused, he could act decisively to please Krishna. And basically, Krishna was playing this role of examining or showing the maturity of his devotees to the world, because confusion is not always a sign of weakness. Arjuna was confused due to ignorance and fear in Gita. But Arjuna's confusion here was a dharmic tension. It was not just his confusion in Bhagavad Gita was not same as his confusion in this situation. That was ignorance and fear, more of a personal weakness. Here it was a dharmic tension. So it is very natural to be confused in such complicated situations. But because he has people whom he loves on all sides fighting and giving different opinions. So that shows that there is spiritual depth within Arjuna. And it also, to earn Krishna's trust, is seen how Arjuna is internalizing the situation and realizing and acting. And the less Krishna says in such situations, it's that he trusts Arjuna more. So in Gita, Arjuna learned how to surrender. And here in the Bhagavatam, he's showing how a surrendered devotee actually acts when caught between multiple choices, especially when all of them are dharmic choices. So in Gita, he's showing how to surrender, but here he's showing how after surrendered also it's not that we will not have complicated situations. I have surrendered to Krishna, now everything is going to be simple in life. No. So he's showing that how a surrendered devotee will also have confusing situations, but how does a surrendered devotee act? And how we all speak about this question, like why do bad things happen to good people? And here we see in this particular chapter, what do good people actually do when bad things happen to them? When they are put in complicated situations, when they're put in extreme problems, or what do actually good people do? So based on that, we can see how good one is based on how they react to a particular situation. So these are some of the thoughts. And I know it's a lot of verses we covered. There's a huge chapter. However, I also wanted to cover the chapter. We have been holding on to this for a while. And give me a minute. We will go over the chapter and then I'll open it. So the overall summary of this chapter is that Suta Goswami describes from verses 1 to 8 that how Vyasadeva composed and revised Bhagavatam and also taught it to his son Shukadev Goswami. And between verses 9 and 11, we saw that after that part of the question is covered, we have been seeing that history of Bhagavatam from chapter 4 onwards. When it came to a logical conclusion, then Shaunaka inquired that why did Shukadev Goswami actually study Bhagavatam despite being self-realized? And in order to glorify Srimad Bhagavatam, this question was answered. And that one verse is so famous, Atma Ramaschamanaya. And by that, they complete the glories of Bhagavatam with that verse of Atma Ramaschamanaya. And after that, from the verse 12 onwards, the Kurukshetra war background was discussed, and Aśvatthāmā murdering the sleeping sons of Draupadī, and then how Arjuna vows to kill Aśvatthāmā and approaches to arrest him, but Aśvatthāmā releases Brahmastra and Arjuna does not understand what's going on. He prays to Krishna. Krishna tells him, release another Brahmastra to counter this, and he does it, but he does not actually kill him immediately, even though Krishna is also pushing him to do that. He cites, even though Krishna cites scriptural principles, and then Arjuna brings Aśvatthāmā back to the camp. Draupadi wants Tama to be forgiven, and Yudhishthira Maharaj agrees, and all others agree except Bhima. So Krishna gives a balanced directive and asks Arjuna to satisfy all of them. And Arjuna, understanding the heart of Krishna, chooses to humiliate Aśvatthāmā and not kill him. So in this way, Aśvatthāmā was exiled, and the final rites of all the dead, deceased people from the war and others were all performed. So now the thematic study part. So we know every chapter we try to look through the lens of the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. Here we see Poshana, protection, that how the Lord protects Arjuna and the universe and his devotees by guiding him to counter Aśvatthāma's destructive Brahmastra, and his constant presence ensures safety for his devotees. It's external protection, but also internal protection, that how he was there to help the devotees. And Uti, we can see Aśvatthāma's desire to gain favor with Duryodhana leads him to commit a heinous act. So this Uta, our inclinations, our motivations can be so devastating or can be so uplifting for our lives. So what is our motivation? So that is also being focused here. And this chapter also highlights Krishna's role in guiding Arjuna, and on the whole pastime, it is about the glories of the devotees. This chapter is actually speaking volumes about the greatness of Vaishnavas, like Draupadi, Arjuna, and all of them, and Ashraya. And Arjuna teaches that even in moments of danger, not just in moments of danger, in all moments, that how Krishna is the ultimate shelter. So these are some of the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam, which could be highlighted in the narration of this chapter. And in the context of the canto level, there are three main important things. These are the three things that the first canto establishes. Otherwise, who's qualified for Bhagavatam to speak or to hear? And Uttama Sadhya is who's the ultimate object of worship or sadhana, and what is the best sadhana. So this chapter clearly emphasizes that the exalted qualification of both speaker and hearer, Vyasadeva, how he was qualified by the instructions of Narada Muni, how he focused on the meditation. Shukadeva Goswami, who heard Bhagavatam from Vyasadeva, how qualified he was, how he was in the stage of liberated, complete material detachment. So this shows that even liberated souls are attracted to Bhagavatam, and that is the qualification. On the level of Uttama Sadhya, we can see that how Arjuna turns to Krishna, even in moments of difficulty, showing that Krishna is the supreme guide, protector, and object of devotion through all situations in life. And as Uttama Sadhana, Arjuna is praying to Krishna. Through that, he is showing how bhakti, he is taking shelter of Krishna. And also we see how even great sages like Srila Goswami take the trouble to study Bhagavatam, showing that bhakti has the highest means and to know and to serve the Lord. And in the Tattva context of Sambandha Abhidena, we can see the multiple Sambandhas are shown. The technically Sambandha means a relationship between the soul and Krishna. But here we can see how, as a devotee, Krishna is willing to be Arjuna's charioteer, guide, and friend. And we can see, even though Aśvatthāmā had a great connection with Dronacharya, he's a Chiranjeeva, he's a great person, but that relationship, he could not fully utilize that because he acted in glorious ways. Even though he was in a sacred relationship with great people, he was like the son of their favorite teacher, and he could have been a great friend to Arjuna. And by being a great friend to Arjuna, he could have received the mercy of Krishna easily. However, he chose the side of Duryodhana. So because of that, forever Aśvatthāmā stood on the other side of the mercy. So Lord's position as supreme controller is also established. and Arjuna's constant dependence on Krishna and praying to Krishna. And that also shows the part of Abhideya, so how remembrance of Krishna, even in moments of grief. And also we see Draupadi, her devotional understanding, because Prabhupada Maharaj was in the initiation ceremony, Radhanath Maharaj was saying, it's not about just the 4 regulative principles and chanting Hare Krishna. Initiation is not just about that. He said it's also living a life of Vaishnava values. So that is the Abhideya also. It is not just I follow the regulative principles and chant and my Abhideya is done. It's also developing qualities and how we actually live and reflect these qualities. And that is also part of the Abhideya, how we live, how we interact with others, how we behave with others. That is also part of the Abhideya process of Bhakti. Bhakti as a way of living and decision making is very prominent in this particular section. Arjuna, the goal, we can clearly see even great liberated souls as Shukadeva Goswami are attracted to Krishna's glories, showing that goal is not liberation, is not Brahman liberation, but the goal is loving service to the Supreme Lord. And in this on the side of Arjuna, goal is not being like, nah, the goal is not just to act according to external roles, but also to actually please the Supreme Lord is the highest goal. That's what Krishna says. Please all of us. Act in ways that would satisfy all of us. That is the final instruction he received. He did not say act as a Kshatriya or act as this. He said act in a way that can actually please all of us. Do something which can actually please all of us. So pleasing the Lord and the Vaishnavas is the highest goal. This is very hard. We're all trying. So thank you and congratulations. We completed 7 chapters finally. And we will start with the chapter 8 in the next verse, next week, Krishna willing. And yeah, any thoughts, any reflections? Yes, Mother Shilpi. Krishna, Mother Gail, I'm not sure if your hand is from the previous raised hand.
Oh, it's new.
Okay, so then we will go with you first and then Mother Shilpi.
Oh, no, let Mother Shilpi go first.
Okay.
Mother Gail, you can go first, no problem. I saw you raise your hand quite a while back. That's totally fine.
That's okay. Actually, I cheated. I left it up and now.
Oh, is it okay? No worries,
Okay.
that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so you were saying, you always hear that it's an offense to not be happy upon seeing a Vaishnava, no?
Yes.
So I can't believe that would apply even to Draupadi after all of her sons' heads were beheaded. So I feel like this word happy, it must not be literal like that. Not that you want to smile upon seeing any Vaishnava, no matter what the relationship has been between you. I feel like it can't be that simplistic.
Yes. Actually, that verse is not for this situation because Aśvatthāmā cannot be counted. So I was just saying, even if she is able to forgive, what to speak of when we are dealing with devotees? And the idea of happiness is not just we are bubbly. What is that particular thing is showing in our heart is there is like a hate in the heart. I don't know why this person came before me. There is that hate. That's what is being, because that is against love. So we are trying to chant and pour devotion to soften the heart so that love can actually manifest. And however, we are also harboring hate on the side, which is going to close the heart. So happy there is not to have hate.
Okay, so it's a much lower standard of happy.
In the sense,
like
happy,
you said, it's not bubbly.
And also to be able to put aside and just, okay, we are differing in opinions, but that's fine. Can I be just happy that here is a devotee? And how rare devotees are, like, okay, we may differ, but still he is a devotee, so that's fine. Like, I can just be happy with this person. So that means you need to develop friendly relationships also. So it cannot be possible with everybody in all situations. So Krishna is also in our hearts. Krishna is not judging us by a rule book. Consciousness is dynamic and Krishna knows our heart. If we are sincerely endeavoring, if it is very hard for my, say, currently in the state of my consciousness, if someone said something to me and it's so hard and it will still pain, but I can think, okay, Krishna, means it is still hard for me. I'm just going to go and be nice to this devotee. I'm not going to make a big deal of it, but I am hurt. Please help me with that. So there is nothing wrong in being genuine. And we see Vidura when Duryodhana actually calls him, oh, throw this son of a maid out and leave him just with the life. So when he actually disrespects Vidura in a full assembly and literally banishes him from the family. And it is said in the Bhagavatam verse that Vidura feels like an arrow pierced his heart. His words came like an arrow piercing his heart. He was actually pained, but what he feels how Krishna is orchestrating all of this for his benefit. And he is also seeing that how Maya is acting on this, like he is acting in ways that is going to put him more and more in trouble for Duryodhana. And he sees how Krishna is unentangling him from the situation, freeing him from the situation. Apparently, it looks like he's being disrespected. But Vidura is able to see the silver line there. But he is pained in his heart. But he recovers things, thinking, okay, Krishna, I understand what you're trying to do with me. It's very painful to the heart, but I know you're doing this for my good. And he goes away. It's not that Bhagavatam is not saying that it did not even affect him. He was unaffected eventually, but as a human being, he could also feel that pain. So similarly, we are human beings. We may have emotions, but we could, if we are honest in our hearts, and Krishna is watching. So nobody is a judge. It's not a verse which judges us. There is no rule book. Consciousness is dynamic, and Krishna is also very dynamic.
Yeah, so therefore, what you seem to be saying is that happy means to not allow your emotions to dictate how you deal with the person.
Yes.
Okay, that level of happiness I can deal with. I can't deal with bubbly. I can deal with keep my emotions under my control, not allow my emotions to be in the driver's seat.
And also most of these things become like natural. It's not that we have to become like something which is so hard. When these great devotees are acting, they are not acting by rule book. When consciousness actually opens, it gives the
It's
ability
natural.
to hold contradictions actually. So very evolved people are the people who can accommodate contradictions so much. So it's mind-blowing for a person who is on a closed level of consciousness, like a bird. When there is more and more space.
Yeah, the similarity between us and pure devotees is that we are all just very naturally acting according to our consciousness. Yeah, there's nothing artificial for them. There's nothing artificial for us either. We're just on different levels of consciousness, but we're still, all of us, acting based on our consciousness. So yeah, I can see that. Okay, Prabhu, I have another thing where I just want to confirm, right, that when you talk about the karmic tension that Arjuna was experiencing here versus what he experienced in the war, is that his perplexity during the war was due to his identification with the body. So he got confused, right, as to what was his actual duty because of that body identification. Whereas here, in today's discussion, the tension was not due to any body identification at all. The dharmic tension was that everybody's advice seemed correct and on the level of dharma, right? And therefore, he had difficulty maybe in figuring out which was the highest dharma, none of which were on the bodily platform. Is that correct understanding?
Yeah, the Gita was like a moral dilemma. This is more of an ethical dilemma.
Moral versus ethical?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Can you clarify?
Moral is usually between right and wrong. There is a choice between right and wrong. One is right, the other one is wrong. So it's a moral choice. But ethical is usually all the choices are right. But which is more right in this particular situation is what is confusing. It needs maturity.
Okay. That's a nice distinction. Hey, Prabhu, one last thing.
Yes.
Bhima.
Bhima.
Yes, yeah. Bhima wanted Aśvatthāmā killed. I'm wondering, was that desire just Leela? Because are we not to understand that even Bhima was a pure devotee? And so his desire that Aśvatthāmā be killed, was that, let's say, I don't know how to say it, an artificial desire that appeared to be out of passion, or was it a dharmic desire that Arjuna had to, one of those many dharmic decisions that Arjuna had to choose from, which was also, so in other words, I'm asking, was his desire,
was it orchestrated or was it a natural response? How Krishna organizes things is like Leela is very difficult to accommodate within logic, because Bhima is also an angry young man, like an angry Kshatriya type. So it is very natural. It goes with his nature. Throughout his character, if you see Mahabharata, that particular argument of his goes with his nature. He was always like
angry.
Angry. So it goes with his nature. However, we cannot say he is less of a Vaishnava because of that. And also he's playing a role in these pastimes. So it's quite confusing for me to be able to clearly see all those strands. There are too many strands within these personalities. And when they are acting according because of Krishna's will, in the sense they never act outside Krishna's will, still, when are they being used as an instrument in the Leela, and when they are actually acting their natural ways is very hard, because say Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Mahabharata, was he really confused? Or was he put into confusion because of Krishna wanted the Gita to be spoken?
We say that it was a Leela because
it was a Leela, but was his emotions then artificial?
No, but it wasn't artificial, but only because of Yogamaya.
So it could be very similar in this situation also.
Yeah, that's what I was wanting to.
Yeah, very similar, but there is not a very clear and a purpose like that in this situation. So not that everything it's not that they lack a personality, but Krishna also has different kinds of devotees. Even in the spiritual world, we see Satyabhama is like very dominant and angry, and Rukmini Devi is very polite. So there are different kinds of devotees. Emotions are allowed. It's not that the advanced devotee means everybody is like very. There can be different flavors among great devotees' personalities.
Yeah, but like we were saying earlier, though, even though it doesn't mean that spiritual means that you're devoid of emotions, it just means that the emotions are not dictated by the modes or Maya, let's say.
Yeah.
So for me, the reconciliation with, let's say, Bhima or any other pure devotee is that their emotions, they're not artificial. It's just that it's not due to they're being covered by Mahamaya. They're covered by Yogamaya. And so the emotions are real, because in the spiritual world, you do have real emotions too. They're just mimicking our emotions due to the influence of Yoga Maya. That's how I'm thinking to
True,
reconcile.
it's right. And also Bhima was not like taking an objection when things did not go exactly how he wanted.
Okay, great, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So,
Hare
Prabhu, my
Krishna.
question is a little bit related to what Mother Gail was also touching upon. I'm still a little bit confused that why. So, Krishna has spoken Bhagavad Gita just 18 days ago, right? And it's very fresh in Arjuna's mind. And there, Arjuna was giving 5 solid reasons why he does not want to fight. One of the primary reasons that he saw his own relatives standing in the opposition army and he does not want to kill them, right? Krishna defeated that argument by replying to him about Matra Sparshasta Kaunteya, right? That in the discharge of your duty, there will be happiness and distress. That was at the bodily platform. Then he also says that we are not these bodies, we are spirit souls. So what you are killing is just the body, and these people are already killed, right? So he has defeated Arjuna's arguments in all possible ways. And then Arjun comes to the conclusion, Karishya, I will do your will. And then they fight the war. So now I'm thinking that why, when now in this situation, Krishna is asking him to kill Aśvatthāmā, why is he rethinking? Isn't that very clear in his mind already? Because it is the exact same situation if you see, because he did not want to kill Drona because he was a spiritual teacher. So there was this relationship. And now he does not want to kill Aśvatthāmā because Aśvatthāmā is Drona's son. So there's again this relationship. So he's actually making a decision subconsciously with a bodily conception in his mind. It looks like it is still not very clear to him. So I think like why Arjuna has to go through this decision making again, why he just cannot hear what Krishna is saying right away.
Thank you. It's such a refined and detailed question. And I would say Arjuna is also playing multiple roles. So as a Kshatriya, he's also bound to think of dharmic codes and social customs and all of these things. So seeing Drona as a Brahmana or Aśvatthāmā as connected to Acharya, so he is also treated to be like a Brahmana. So those things are also important considerations. Just because now he has spiritual instructions does not mean any lower instruction can be like all the time neglected. And here also, this is more of a personal situation. Mahabharata wars had a larger implication and a larger picture, but this is also very pertaining to his immediate family. And just because he has the spiritual knowledge does not mean, okay, soul will never be killed. So that's not an excuse to just go around killing for any simple reason immediately.
Prabhu, this was not a simple reason.
I understand, but he's not saying he will not kill. He just wants to take more, informed opinion. He doesn't want to act immediately. He's not saying he will kill or not kill. He's just saying, let's take him to Draupadi and see what happens. And that's why the same thing, Krishna is also like approving of this. It said Krishna smiles when he takes that decision, because Krishna is also trying to see that how, just because now you have the power, just because you have spiritual knowledge. So he has both now. He has political power and he also has spiritual knowledge. So then there can be justification for anything that he wants to do. Still to actually act in a matured way, considering all the codes and making sure that the decisions are not taken in a haphazard way out of anger or anything. So he's also restraining. Okay, now I have both political power and I also have spiritual knowledge. So let me make sure my decisions are perfect. And she's also saying, Draupadi is also saying, if please exhibit some restraint, exhibit some control. So I would say now he has even more power, spiritual knowledge and political power. So then it means he can just justify anything if he wants to. So the soul argument cannot be the only argument for executing these kind of administrative powers in the world.
Okay. So meaning Prabhuji is in a more privileged position after winning the war. And with great power comes greater responsibility. So he's rethinking about that decision making.
Yes. And also having spiritual knowledge does not mean he is not a Kshatriya anymore.
Yeah.
And he needs to act like a Kshatriya also.
Yeah. And also I'm just thinking that he is okay to not follow Krishna right away. He's still using his brains.
Yeah, he's still, it's not that, okay, Krishna said, so I'm just doing it, because there is always, they have a relationship. They have a relationship for Arjuna to understand. I think like he's not fully, I'm not sure if he's testing me. I'm not sure if he's really wanting me to do this. So he has enough personal experience with Krishna.
Yeah. But Prabhu, why is Arjuna's reaction different when Abhimanyu got killed versus when these sons are beheaded? Because...
No, say for example, like there also, he did not say, I will not fight. He did not say, why Krishna, you did not protect or anything like that. It is very natural to exhibit emotions. Here also he exhibited emotion. Initially he said, I will bring the head of that person, whoever. Yeah. Immediately the emotion was there. And then he went back and also he's in between a war. It's much more charged. And then he took a vow. So then Krishna had to step in and see, okay, you took a vow, so it is my now duty to protect, because there is also, Arjuna is a very important instrument. So that pastime also has another thing that Krishna keeps bailing out Arjuna whenever he does that. He also says once, if the Brahmana sons are getting killed, then he vows, okay, in my presence, if this happens, I will enter into fire. And Mahavishnu takes the kids and he's again in trouble. So Krishna says, no, wait, let's resolve this in a different way. So there's
Mhm.
a lot more personal relationship and pastimes, and Krishna is personally also involved. So there are more details.
Okay. Okay, Prabhu. I think that's good. Thank you for
Thank you.
answering, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Bye-bye.